Hello, my name is Sabina Makoyak, and this is my presentation on Meet the Teacher Night. I will be teaching Spanish 10. Introduction. Hello, my name is Sabina Makoyak, and I will be your student teacher for Spanish 10 this year. I would like to tell you a bit about myself. I am a Spanish major and French minor. I've been studying these languages for about all my life, and I am very passionate about languages in general. They have always been an interest to me. So I want you all to know that your children are in good hands because I can promise you all that they will get the most out of this class. And I'm very excited to get to know your children, and I really hope they will have a good experience in my class. So without further ado, let's begin. Here is a broad look of what I will be speaking about in my presentation today. So we will touch base on program of studies and where to find it, the stages of the program of studies, the CEFR, which I will get into more detail later, and my classes and what to expect from my classes. So starting with the program of studies, what is it? The program of studies is a legal document that all teachers must follow when teaching a specific subject. It specifies what we should teach our students. For the languages, there consists of 4 different categories that are applications, language competence, global citizenship, and strategies. I will describe each section with more detail, but first let me tell you how to find the POS. The POS is like a guide for teachers. It helps us know what should be taught to your children and to our students. We take what we see in the POS and we make it our own. Teachers have to decide how we want to teach the things in the program of studies. Before we go into detail of where to find the POS, I would like to make your attention on the far right corner. You can see a spiral. This spiral represents the student's language learning progress. They start from the bottom, going vertically up, but also expanding horizontally with the 4 main sections of the POS. Before I get into detail with the 4 sections of the POS, I have numbered the steps to find the POS, so please pay attention. In order to find the program of studies, the first thing you have to do is type into Google Alberta Education Program of Studies, as shown in number 1. Once you have done that, there will be a list of subject areas of the program and the program of studies. Spanish is found under the international languages. As you can see in step 2, there are 3 sections for international languages, K6, 7 to 9, 10 to 12. Those numbers there mean the grade level. Since this is high school Spanish, Spanish 10, I'm going to click on the international languages 10 to 12. Once you've clicked on that, you will see on the left-hand side a green tab with Program of Studies written on it, as seen in step 3. You must click on the Program of Studies with the 25 beside it. Scroll down until you see Spanish. Once you see Spanish, you'll see it as in step 4. Click on it and there you have many documents of Spanish. The program of studies for Spanish is called Spanish Language and Culture because it focuses on how to use the language correctly and also focusing on the culture behind the language. As you can see, there are levels 10, 11, 12. You can find what will be covered in the Spanish classes from grades 10 to 12. Now, you may be wondering what the 3Y, 6Y, and 9Y mean. This means that the government of Alberta took into consideration the students that have either been studying Spanish and they want to continue it in high school, or the ones that are just starting. So for example, if your child started learning Spanish in grade 7, then the program of studies that best applies to them is the 6Y program. While another student who is just starting Spanish for the first time ever in grade 10 would consider the POS with the 3Y. Alright, so the first section in the POS is applications. Applications deal with what the students will be able to do with the language, the functions they will be able to perform, and the context in which they will be able to operate. This deals with what the students will be able to do with the Spanish language. In general, outcome for this section is that students will be able to use Spanish in a variety of situations and for a variety of purposes, for example, to express emotions and personal perspectives. They'll be able to apply the knowledge they learned into the real world. The second section is language competence. Language competence addresses the student's knowledge of the language and their ability to use that knowledge to interpret and produce meaningful texts appropriate to the situations in which they are used. This is the linguistic or grammatical component. The specific outcomes under language competence deal with knowledge of this language and the ability to use that knowledge to interpret and produce meaningful text appropriate to the situations in which they are used. This is in practical applications, mostly focusing on the language in context. The third section is global citizenship. Global citizenship aims to develop intercultural competence with a particular focus on cultures of the Spanish-speaking world. The learning outcomes for global citizenship deals with the development of intercultural competence encompassing some of the knowledge, skills, and attitudes that students need in order to be effective global citizens. This arises the question of how will the students use the Spanish language and culture outside of the classroom? What we as teachers want is that the students get to use the language not only in the classroom, but outside of it too. We assume that students want to learn a different language because they are curious what really happens in the outside world. We want them to spread their knowledge of the Spanish language outside of the classroom. And the final section is strategies. Strategies help students learn and communicate more effectively and more efficiently. Under the strategies heading are specific outcomes that will help students learn and communicate more effectively. The learning outcomes that follow deal not only with the compensation and repair strategies important in the early stages of language learning when proficiency is low, but with strategies for language learning, language use in a broader sense, as well as general learning strategies that help students acquire content. How do we make it easier for students to learn a language? As teachers, we have to think of strategies in order to help out students, as well as the students come up with their own strategies to make language learning easier for them. All right, so the POS and the CEFR. What is the CEFR? The CEFR first stands for the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages. It's an international standard for describing language ability. It is used all over the world to describe learners' language skills. Now you're probably wondering why I've mentioned this. Basically, it has to do with at what level you are at with the language. The CEFR has 6 parts to it. It's the A1, which is beginner, A2, which is elementary, B1, intermediate, B2, upper intermediate, C1, effective operational proficiency, and C2, which is the mastery level. Much like the POS, the CEFR aims to set the language skills high. Their goal is to get students from the beginner level to the mastery level. With the POS, this is their goal as well. It's our goal as teachers to get students from the beginner level to the mastery level. Obviously, in high school, you cannot go from beginner to mastery. What we want is for students to be able to use the language outside of the classroom, to improve their listening, speaking, pronunciation skills. Much like grade levels in our schools, we expect students who are starting the language to be at a low level, but eventually we want them to rise to the mastery level. Obviously, they cannot get to the mastery level in high school. We expect them to continue the language after high school, so for example, in college, university. So, my classes will be based on task-based learning teaching. You might be wondering what that is, right? Well, let me explain. It means that students will be able to use the language creatively and spontaneously through tasks and problem solving. It's quite simple. Students will be able to use the language in real life situations. That's what I want to do. Like make the students use the language in a real life situation. If that is going to the doctors or buying food at a restaurant. My second point up there is a portfolio-based language assessment. That means that I will have students write a journal entry every week telling me what they have learned in my class. This is great for students to self-reflect on what they are learning and what they still need to work on. It also is good for me as a teacher because it helps me see where the students are still struggling or where they are succeeding. So my main focus in 3 points: listening skills, communication skills, written skills. So what are my main focus for the school year? My goal is for students to use the language as much as possible. I expect myself to give them the required information to succeed in the Spanish language. What I'm aiming for is to help them in their listening, communication, and written skills with various activities and a lot of group work. I believe that students learn best when they are learning with their fellow classmates. Students will be given certain components that will help them fit it into a structure, and then they will be able to build into conversation with the Spanish language. Students will be able to have a normal conversation in the target language, but meaningful conversation. They will also be able to incorporate that information into written texts in the target language and also be able to comprehend in the target language. Obviously, not to a mastery level, but of course to a level where they will be able to understand the basics. Grammar. Grammar is very important. The way I will teach grammar is through various activities that help students understand the grammatical concepts of certain grammatical form. I believe that teaching grammar should be interesting and fun so that the students are engaged and are eager to learn. Just writing the grammatical form on the board is not effective teaching, in my opinion. Students need to be participating constantly. That's what the next point is repetition. I believe that repetition is key. I want the students to repeat whether that is orally or written. Also getting help with grammar from their peers. Students learn best when they are the ones talking, not always the teacher. And them talking about the grammatical concepts can help their peers and themselves. So I believe that grammar should be, in general, fun. It should be taught fun because if you don't have that fun, students lose interest. And that's not good. Pronunciation. Now in Spanish 10 class, the students will just be starting. So I think that pronunciation isn't the most important part. I believe that if they are pronouncing something that is understandable, that's good enough. You can be a good second language speaker without having the best Spanish accent, right? Or whatever accent. As long as the students know that they are saying what they are saying and the teacher knows what they are saying, that shows success to me. Obviously, if there's a problem with the pronunciation, I correct it. It's simple as that. The best way for me is for the students to hear the way I pronounce it. And I obviously will provide various media documents where the students can hear an actual Spanish-speaking person pronounce words. I believe that listening to a native speaker in the target language is key. Culture. Culture is a very important thing in a language classroom in general, whether that's in any language. It's what it's all about. Students need to know the culture behind the language. The way I will teach culture is from my own knowledge of the Spanish culture. I personally know a lot about Spain because I spent about 2 years there. I can bring in specific worksheets, videos that I got from just being there. Tell them about my experience in the Spanish-speaking country. Best way to also learn the language is by experience. Other than that, I will allow students to experience Spanish culture right here in the classroom. I intend to find guest speakers from a Spanish-speaking world, take them to Spanish shows that are offered in the city, take them to Spanish restaurants where they experience the food, the typical food of a specific Spanish country. Have activities that have a cultural aspect to it. It's very important to expose students to the Spanish culture in all of my classes, which I will do. The Spanish culture is so diverse because there are so many countries that speak the Spanish language. So there's so many different cultures to learn about, and I'm very excited to teach them all about it. So learning strategies, what my learning strategies, number one is getting to know my students through discussion, summarize, use imagery. In order to give good learning strategies, I should know my students, which I intend to do. I believe that that's the number one thing. I plan on getting to know each student in different ways. So if that's by talking with my students or learning things about them. Talking with my students will allow me to know what they know and what they need to know, not only in the Spanish language, but for example, helping them in general to succeed in school. Assessment of your children, so of my students. Your children will be assessed according to the way they do in my class and depending on how they take the class. If I see the students are putting effort in learning the language, they will receive a fair grade, obviously. On the other hand, if I see students slacking off, then they will receive the grade that they deserve. I believe that students are constantly should constantly be assessed, whether that's formatively or summatively. If that is by me hearing that they are using the target language in my class or the way they perform in assessed activities, as for example presentations, tests. Constant feedback is very important for the students. They have to know how they are doing, right? So either the feedback will be given orally or written. I find that students like their feedback, if it's from the teacher or from their fellow students. It's important to tell them that what they're doing well first. I never start with the bad, and I don't even say it's bad, but I like to use the words like you could improve. This allows the students to reflect on what they need to do better, and it actually encourages the school student to do better. I will constantly be giving them activities where it's graded. I want to see my students succeed. That's number one. There will be unit exams and quizzes, and I will have rubrics that follow the POS so that I test them on everything that I should be teaching them on. There will be presentations where I can hear the students using the target language, and those presentations will also come with a rubric, allowing the students to see what exactly I'm looking for. With rubrics, it shows, yes, exactly what I'm looking for, and then the students can actually put in what I'm looking for. So, my guiding principles to finish off. To conclude my presentation, I have just a guiding principle. I believe that teaching is a very important job. We are here to help our students continue their education. As a teacher, I know I have to keep the students motivated to learn more, right? The most important thing is that the students are constantly learning, but learning in a way that is enjoyable. I want my students to have fun in my class, and together we can make it possible. So basically, work hard, but remember to have fun. That's my message to everyone. Thank you very much for listening. I look forward to teaching your children in the following year. Goodbye.